Hi pals, and welcome to a new video. I'm Kate, and there is nothing like reading classic crime in autumn and winter, ready for cozy season. So that's exactly what I've been doing. Over the past couple of weeks, I have read 3 incredible classic crime novels from republished discovery from British Library Crime Classics to Agatha Christie to a 400-year-old kind of historical murder mystery. Let's go ahead and get started. First up is Tea on Sunday by Lettice Cooper. This has recently been republished by the British Library in their Crime Classics series. I'm a big fan of the British Library Crime Classics. I speak about them quite a lot on the channel. Tea on Sunday was republished this year, and this is the most atmospheric winter crime novel. This has the most delightfully English murder mystery setup. 8 guests are invited to tea on a freezing cold Sunday in February. There is a snow blizzard. They've been invited as guests of an elderly kind of businesswoman. When all of the guests arrive at the house, they discover that their hostess has been murdered. It very quickly becomes clear that one of those 8 guests is the murderer. So this is very much a kind of closed circle murder mystery. It's also like part police procedural as well. This was written in the 1970s, so quite late for classic crime and later than you'd expect to find in the British Library Crime Classics, but it's very much written in that golden age style. Lettice Cooper came to writing murder mysteries quite late on in her life. And you can definitely see that she's taken a lot of inspiration from like Agatha Christie, Dorothy L. Sayers, etc. The strengths of this novel are definitely the atmosphere and the characters. Like I said, you have that freezing cold snow blizzard in February. The novel takes place between London and Yorkshire. Also, the characters in this really stand out. You have a really traditional, methodical detective, and the guests that are invited to tea are very Agatha Christie-esque. You know, the family lawyer, the doctor, the actress. So it's very reminiscent of those golden age crime novels. This is a very solid mystery, and Lettice Cooper is having something of a revival. She is a Persephone Books author. They published 2 of her novels which aren't crime. I think National Provincial and The New House, I hope I have that right. And Penguin have also recently republished her novel Fenny in their Mermaid series, which is publishing novels by women from the mid to late 20th century. So all round she is coming back into style, which is fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this, and if you want a traditional solid murder mystery that has that kind of like cozy winter vibe, this is a really good one. I do have my coffee today, and you may notice that the background is different. I moved into my house about 5-ish months ago now, and I've been slowly getting everything together. So I've switched my filming spot now to be in front of my bookcases, and I have another bookcase for my classic crime novels arriving soon as well. So you should see those shortly because currently they're in boxes. Let's crack on with our second novel, which is one of Agatha Christie's most iconic novels and one of my favourites, Endless Night. This is a standalone novel published later in her career in, I think, 1967. I reread this week and I had such a good time. This one stands up so well to a reread. I don't have a copy of this because I am slowly collecting Agatha Christie's in the facsimile edition, so the reproductions of the originals. There's a bookshop in High on Wye dedicated to crime novels, and I know that they have a copy of this, so I'm hoping at some point I'll be able to pick it up from there. The important thing to note with Endless Night is that this is not an Agatha Christie whodunit. This is very much a psychological thriller in the 1960s style. This novel is one of Agatha Christie's best, in large part because of the characterization. It's narrated It's a first person narration by Michael Rogers. He's a young man in his early 20s. He is quite restless and drifting from job to job. There's an edge to him, and he's also very entitled. I remember listening to the All About Agatha podcast, and they made a really good point that you could transport him into the 21st century and he would be the kind of loner guy in his early 20s on Reddit or on 4chan, which I think is such a good point. She really tapped into something with him. He comes across an advert for an auction of an estate called The Towers. It's known locally as Gypsy's Acre, and also locally it's thought to be cursed. It's because a lot of strange things have happened on the land, a lot of deaths, a lot of unexplained accidents. I know that Gypsy isn't really a word that we use very often anymore. It's impossible to talk about this novel without using it as a kind of description. While at Gypsy's Acre, he meets a young woman called Ellie Goodman. She is kind and sweet, a little naive. They very quickly fall in love, get married in secret, and they take residence at Gypsy's Acre. No spoilers, this all happens very early on in the novel. They tear down the old Victorian building at Gypsy's Acre and build this brilliant new kind of modernist house. Everything is seemingly perfect, except no, because this is an Agatha Christie novel, and this is really where the story starts. This is perfect for autumn and winter because once they're settled in Gypsy's Acre, things become creepier and weirder and a lot more ominous. They start receiving threats. There are weird kind of unexplained accidents. There is a building sense of foreboding, and you do know from the very beginning of this novel that something terrible is going to happen. The ending of this novel is just utter perfection. There are a few loose ends in this, and I think if I remember correctly, that's because after the fact, after this had been written, Collins, who were publishing her crime novels, requested that she throw in a kind of few more like whodunit style clues. The heart of this novel is really the characters and the house, the sense of place. Agatha Christie is so good at observing people, getting to the heart of the thing and really understanding their motivations, and this is one of the best examples of her doing that. I highly recommend this. I know an awful lot of people will have read this one already because, like I said, it's one of her most iconic novels. If you've never read any Agatha Christie, this would be a great place to start because it is standalone and it is one of her best. However, I think it will also give you a kind of false idea of the rest of her work because it's not in that kind of like whodunit style, so just bear that in mind. I reread this because there's going to be an adaptation of this next year in 2026, so now would be a really good time to pick this up if you haven't already. This is being adapted for the BBC by Sarah Phelps, which makes me a little bit nervous as the last few Agatha Christie adaptations that the BBC have done, they've not been good. I did like Sarah Phelps' And Then There Were None, and even Witness for the Prosecution. They did take some liberties though, and I have a feeling that she's gonna like dial up the gratuitousness, if that's a word, for this adaptation. We'll have to wait and see. All in all, if you haven't read this is such a good one for autumn and winter. And I hope you enjoy it if you do get to it. Right, let's go on to our last book, which is The Daughter of Time by Josephine Tey. This was published in 1951 and has one of the most unique premises that you'll find in any crime novel. It is the ultimate slow burn cold case. The detective in this is Inspector Grant. He appears in other novels by her, and in this he is bedbound in hospital because he's fallen through a trapdoor, which is a hilarious injury really. And so to pass the time, he ends up investigating a 400-year-old murder mystery, the ultimate historical murder mystery of the princes in the tower, famously, notoriously murdered apparently by Richard III. For anyone not up on the Plantagenet Tudor history, Richard III was the last Plantagenet king before the Tudor era. He supposedly murdered his two nephews, the princes in the Tower, to secure power and to secure the throne. He later died at the Battle of Bosworth. There's a really good film called The King in the Car Park about them discovering his remains a few years ago, which I also really recommend. The Murder of the Princess in the Tower by Richard III is like a famous story that you learn in history lessons as a kid. I did say that this was a slow burn, and I do think it takes a little while to get going, but don't let that put you off, because this is really unique and it does have layers to it. One of the things that it does is blend historical investigation with modern with 20th century detective work. This has a lot to say about the historical approach and where it falls short. And one of the arguments in the book is that history fails to comprehend how individuals work, their motivations, their characters, and actually a detective, if they're a good detective, that's their kind of bread and butter. It also touches on how history is shaped and by who, how national historic myths come to be accepted truth. If you're into your Tudor history, you will find this fascinating. Most of the sources that he uses to investigate the murder are from the Tudor period, Henry VII to Henry VIII, which is part of the problem of investigating the murders rather than contemporaries of Richard III. So if you like that kind of 16th century history, this could really be for you. This is 224 pages and probably says more on those topics than some much longer kind of literary novels would, in a really accessible and simple way. I really love Josephine Tey. And I wish we had more novels by her. Right, that's our last novel, and I have just in time finished my coffee. If you've read any of these, or if you want to read any of these, or if you have any recommendations, I'm always looking for classic crime recommendations. Please leave them in a comment below. I love to hear from everybody in the comments. It always makes my day. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye!